Alright, so nandito na tayo sa sa second lesson natin, which is yung climate change. At proceed na po tayo sa lesson natin. Alam natin na mayroon pinagkaiba ang weather and climate, no? And then ano yung pinagkaiba ng weather at climate para hindi po kagad muna tayo maguluhan dito sa lesson natin. So, ang weather, no, it was described as the change in the condition of the atmosphere over a short period of time. It is the day-to-day pattern of interactions of cloudiness, humidity, pressure, precipitation or rainfall, sunlight, temperature, wind direction, and wind speed in an area. Then yung climate, no, it is the average condition of the atmosphere over a long period of time in a particular area or region. So just like our country has tropical and maritime climate with relatively high temperature, high humidity, and abundant rainfall. So the Earth's climate is greatly influenced by the interaction that involves the sun, ocean, atmosphere, lands, clouds, ice, and even living things. So ito na yung mga factors that affects our climate, no? Just like yung geographical location, no? So recall in our grade 7 topics that our country is located near the equator, particularly at the latitude of 13 degrees and with a longitude of 122 degrees. So it is the reason why the country has a tropical climate. So one of the factors that affect the climate is the distance of the place from the equator. At ang bansa natin ay tumatama dun sa linya ng Ecuador, no? At or malapit, no? And then the further the place from the equator, the cooler the climate. This is because at the poles, the solar energy from the sun reaches Earth's surface at lower angles and passes through a thicker layer of atmosphere. So on the other hand, the equator receives direct light and heat energy from the sun. Thus, the places near the equator experiences warmer climate. So ayan po sila. And then topography, it refers to the natural and artificial physical features of a certain place. It includes the oceans and mountains which affect the climate. So mountains act as a natural barrier to air movement. Mountainous areas receive more rainfall than low-lying areas because as the air moves to a higher ground, it cools down, causing moist air to condense and fall as rain. So it is also important to note that the higher the place is, the colder it will be. So this is because of the increased altitude where the air becomes thinner and less able to absorb and retain heat. This is the reason why it is colder on the mountains than in a low-lying areas. So example of this is the Sierra Madre, no? The mountain ranges or bulubundukin, no? So ang laki na itutulong nila, lalo na sa bansa natin, specifically sa part ng area ng Luzon, sa Luzon, no? And then sa upper part nakikita natin yung mismong barrier, no, or ito yung nagiging shield ng mga taga northern part ng Luzon na, or even suddenly dun sa northern or central Luzon na somehow yun nagiging shield nila, no, para maging barrier nila pagdating dun sa malakas na hampas ng ulan at hangin. And then in terms of topography again, on the other hand, the sea affects the prevailing wind patterns and the type of air masses that form in a certain area, causing coastal areas to have cooler and wetter climate than inland areas. When the warm air from inland areas meet the cold air from the sea, clouds will form. No? So, in terms of prevailing winds, ito yung mga winds from one direction which blow more often than another. These winds affect the climate, specifically the amount of precipitation an area receives, which depends on the moisture they are carrying. The prevailing winds may either move air masses containing moisture from the ocean onto the land or move air masses with drier air from the continent to the ocean. So next is yung El Niño and LANIña. So El Niño muna tayo mag-focus, no? So it refers to the recurrent phenomenon caused by the irregular warming of surface water in the Pacific. It produced extreme weather conditions which results to droughts and floods in the countries around the Pacific Rim. It greatly affects the temperature and other elements of weather climate, altering global winds and rainfall patterns. So ayun po. So yan po yung itsura nila. So this phenomenon usually occurs about the time of Christmas. So it was named as El Niño, which means the boy child in Spanish. Its counterpart is La Niña, which is the girl child, which is associated with low temperature and heavier than usual rainfall areas. So yung nakikita ninyo dito is yung mga human activities. The factors mentioned above naturally affect the climate. However, human activities such as burning fossil fuels like natural gas, gasoline, pati na rin yung mga coal, they are greatly affect the global climate. When burned, they release large amounts of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide into the atmosphere, or sabihin natin na ito ay mga greenhouse gases. Then these accumulated gases forms a thick blanket around the Earth, which traps high amount of thermal energy that is reflected off the Earth's surface. This eventually results to a higher global atmospheric temperature. Industrial activities, improper waste disposals, and deforestations also have a big impact dun sa climate change. Since trees take in carbon dioxide, deforestation will result to an increased amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which eventually lead climate change. So ayun po yun, ganyan po yung nangyayari sa kanya, di ba ho? And then proceed tayo sa Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn. Ano yung connect nito dito sa climate change, no? Or hindi naman sa climate change mismo, kumbaga yung mismo particular climate, no? So the lines of latitude are parallel to the equator and to each other. 5 lines of latitude have special names. They are listed in the table below. So yung 0 degree, yan yung equator. 23.5 degrees north, Tropic of Cancer. 23.5 degrees south, Tropic of Capricorn. 66.5 degrees north, yan yung Arctic Circle, and then 66.5 degrees south, yan yung Antarctic Circle. So did you know that the lines of latitude of the place can affect by its climate we experience? So malalaman natin dito yan, no, sa 3 basic climate zones. So they are tropical, temperate, and then polar climate zone. So in tropical zone, it falls between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. They have an annual average temperature is above 18 degrees Celsius. They only experience dry and wet season, and then the closer the latitude to the equator, the warmer the climate. So katulad na nakikita ninyo, at ang bansang Pilipinas ay isang magandang halimbawa na tayo ay sakop ng tropic climate or tropical climate zone, no? Dahil tayo ay tumama dun sa parte ng malapit sa equator. And then ayan tayo, no? Kitang-kita naman yung ayan, yung bansa natin na tumatama siya sa tropical zone. Yung mismo red highlight na yan na nakikita ninyo sa image is part yan ng tropical zone. And then yung temperate zone, meron tayong dalawang types na temperate zone. So northern temperate zone, sakop niya Tropic of Cancer and Arctic Circle, and then yung southern temperate zone, ito yung Tropic of Capricorn and Antarctic Circle. So ayan ang temperate zone. So, meron tayong 4 seasons dito sa temperate zone. At sila ay nakakaranas ng winter, spring, summer, at saka autumn. So, ayan. So, lastly, yun yung polar zone or polar climate zone or polar frigid zone, no? Yan. So, they falls into the area within Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. They have an annual average temperature below 10 degrees Celsius. The closer to its poles, the colder the climate. Yun. So, ayan yung itsura ng Arctic Circle. Yung Arctic Circle nasa North Pole, and then yung South Pole, yun yung Antarctic Circle. So, ayan po. So, reminder, if the country is closer to the latitude by its equator, the warmer the climate, and then the closer to its poles, the colder the climate. So, in summary, sa climate change, it is the change in the average weather conditions or patterns extended for a long period of time. It is believed that due to some factors like biotic processes, variations in solar radiations received by the Earth, crustal plate movements, and volcanic eruptions, certain human activities have also been identified as significant cause of recent climate change like global warming, greenhouse effect, and the like. So, evidence of the climate change are now happening worldwide, such as the melting of glaciers, accelerated rising of sea levels, more intense heat waves, and increase in occurrence of several weather disturbances. So, ayun lamang po yung nilalaman ng ating lessons. Kung may clarifications and concerns, leave a comment below, and then that's all for today. Goodbye.